Hello everyone, so welcome back to another devlog for my 2D game project, and today's episode I'm gonna talk about the implementation of the weighted enemy spawner that takes into account the player's survival time and spawns enemies with different difficulties. So let's actually just dive into the process. So the idea behind the weighted enemy spawner. So in my game, we want to make the gameplay more dynamic and challenging as the player survives for a longer time. To achieve this, I've decided to create a weighted enemy spawner that adjusts the chances of spawning harder enemies based on the player's survival time. The idea is to have multiple enemy types, each with a specific time range during which they can spawn. As the player's survival time increases, the chances of spawning harder enemies also increase. So to keep track of the enemy types and their spawn time thresholds, I have created a struct called enemy spawn info, which you can see here. This struct has three members: enemy type, which is just an int type, and then also the minimum and maximum time. I have then created a vector of enemy spawn info objects, each representing a different enemy type and its spawn time threshold. As you can see, I have implemented already two enemies. So the first type, which is the easiest, can spawn in from 0 seconds to 20 seconds, and the next one can be spawned in from 10 seconds to 20 seconds. So, and these values aren't final, they're just here for now for testing. So let's move into the update method. So this method is responsible for spawning enemies based on the player's survival time and the spawn probabilities calculated for each enemy type. The process involves incrementing elapsed time and total survival time, checking if an enemy should spawn, and would do that if the current amount of enemies is less than the maximum amount and if the elapsed time is greater than the spawner. Enemy should spawn, resetting elapsed time, incrementing current number of spawned enemies, and calculating the spawn probabilities for each enemy type. We normalize these probabilities and then use a weighted random selection approach to choose an enemy type based on calculated probabilities. Finally, we can create a new enemy with visual stuff, set the random on the screen, and add it to the game. As the player survives longer, the game becomes more challenging due to the increased chances of spawning harder enemies. We can also fine-tune the spawn time thresholds for each enemy type in the enemy spawn info vector to control the pacing of the game and create the desired difficulty curve. And yeah, I guess I can just show you the demo. So this is the easiest type. Don't care about these weapons like just floating around. And you can see currently only the easiest players get spawned in, and now you can see the more difficult ones also get spawned in. And I mean, yeah, that's as of right now I only have two enemies, but I obviously will have much more enemies later on. And that's it for the devlog. So I've successfully implemented a weighted enemy spawner that adds a dynamic challenge to our 2D games. If you wish to read more about what this actually does, you can just search up like weighted enemy spawner on the internet and you should get bit more info about what exactly this does. And as always, I appreciate your support and interest in my project, and stay tuned for more devlogs and updates on my game's development. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated on our progress. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next devlog.